The first thing that you do when you get this is you can just update the company name to wherever you work, and then make sure you put your name and department on it, right? It's kind of like when you write a paper in middle school. If you don't put your name on it, you don't get credit. I'll come over to the other item in the header that you need to update before you get to the expenses. It's just the month. But when you update it, just double click on it. You'll get a little pop-up calendar, and then you can find the month that you're actually reporting for. This is 2023 right now. So we'll say this is April. I'll pick the end of the month, and there we go. The next cell that's here, D3, just leave that because it's a formula. If we double click in it, it's going to show you the two areas that it's summing right now. So it's summing the range that's in orange, which is right here. These are all your regular expenses, and the range in purple. And if you go down, I'll hit the escape key and we'll hit the page down key. These are your mileage expenses. And we'll get to these in a minute because the way that they work is a little bit different than your regular expenses. All right, so let's say it's the month for which you're reporting your expenses. The one thing is to keep in mind is try to have a clean cutoff on this expense report. So your expenses begin and end in the 1 month that you're reporting for. That helps the accounting department because they're going to want to put the expenses in the month in which they were incurred, and they'll close the books every month, right? So something that maybe happened on the first of the next month, you should put on the next expense report. When you incur expenses, each row is for its own expense, and there should be enough categories on here where you can not have to break it out. But if you do have an expense that fits into more than one category, and we'll talk about the categories in a second, I would just add a line on this report. That way each dollar amount and the amount they can record to its own general ledger account. All right, so I have an example in here. We'll walk through how this is done. In column A, they want the date, and it's another date field where if you double click on it, you'll get a pop-up calendar, or you can just type it in with slashes is the way I did it in this example. There are different ways to type in the dates in spreadsheets, and they'll work, but slashes I think is the easiest. We're in the United States in this example, so that's why it's month, day, year. If you're somewhere else, if you go to File and go to Settings, you should be able to change your locale here. This one's set to the United States, but this is customized for the United States in a different way because it has an IRS mileage reimbursement, but you could change that to your country too. We'll get there in a little bit. The next column in this expense report is called category, and this is a drop-down list. So I limited this to the most common categories in which your expenses could fall when you travel, but this might not be right for your company, right? So we'll talk about how to customize this. If these are close enough, then you don't have to do anything. But if these categories don't quite match, let's get out of here. Go to the instructions tab, and you can update the range here, or you can add to it. Let's say we change entertainment to entertain. Well, I'll just change it to entertaining because this is the live template. So I want it to stay pretty much the same, entertaining. And when you go to this drop down now, it says entertaining instead of entertainment. So that's how to update your categories if you need to. And the next one is a description field, and just put enough in here so that you think the accounting department just knows what it is. And it may save them time. They won't even have to look at the receipt. It depends how thorough they are. But if they do want to see the receipt, this next column is where you can put that. So this is just a copy and paste of the link. And the easiest way to get that in here would be to have the Google Drive app on your phone. Hit the plus button and add a photo. Take a picture of the receipt and upload it. Get the link, put it in here. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. Depends on how your company stores files. But the most integrated way is just to upload it to Google Drive. Now the amount field, I had to type that in, and that should match the total on your receipt, and it should include anything like shipping charges or sales tax, because that entire amount is what you paid as the expense, right? So it's what you should get back. All right, so this total is capturing that like we talked about. We'll just put in one more total in here and watch that total in D3 update. So everything goes into there. The only thing that you need to be careful about is if you have a lot of expenses in a particular month and you have to add rows to here, make sure this formula in D3 updates. All right, let's go down to the other half of this expense reporting template. And this is where you report your mileage. So if you're doing a lot of driving, you could report your actual expenses, but that means that you have to keep track of every time you fill up or charge your car, every time you get a car wash, oil change. You see where I'm going. That is usually a little bit harder, so people opt for recording their mileage. And the best way to record the mileage is just always keep track of where you started and where you ended, right? So that's what we have in this sheet here. Let's say it's August 5th on this one, 2022. And we're going to make up 2 addresses, but we're going to use a function built into Google Sheets called place chips. So they're aware that you're typing a place. If you start typing into the cell with an @ sign, and you can just start typing the address now. So we're just going to try for a 123. We'll do William Street, New York, wherever that is. So this is smart enough where if I just type 3 numbers, it guesses I'm doing an address. It doesn't really know that, but if you are doing an address, just start typing it in and hope it pre-fills like this. We'll select this one. And when you hover back over that, it's going to give you a link to Google Maps. You click on that, it will bring you to Maps. So this just gives you a little bit more information. You don't have to do this. So if I have, let's just say I have another address here. We went then to 124 William Street. We didn't go very far. You can just type it in, right? Whatever your accounting department wants and what makes it easiest for you to look back on it. But then you'll have to go to Google Maps, put in the beginning and the ending address and calculate the distance. Unless you want to run an add-on like I have here. So let me close this sidebar and then I'll click on TripTally. And this is, we'll say use the existing sheet. This is an add-on that takes a list of beginning addresses and a list of ending addresses. So you could wait until you're done for the month, click run, and it will fill out the distance for you. You don't have to go back and forth to Google Maps. So I'll put a link in the video to that option if you want to use it. And then the last thing that's going on this template is that it's taking these miles. You can also do kilometers if you're in another country and you use a more rational way to measure distance, but here we use miles. And this amount is a product of taking the miles times the IRS mileage reimbursement rate. So I have put that in D23. So let's go 1 to the right. E26 is using the formula of the distance times the mileage reimbursement rate. So there's 2 things to remember here. One of them is that this formula that's saying times D23, that's where the reimbursement rate is, has a little $sign before the 23. And you have to keep that on there because when you drag that formula down, so if you add more lines, that keeps the 23 from shifting. So it's always looking at cell D23. And the other thing to keep in mind is that oftentimes the IRS changes the mileage rate. So let me hit escape. I have the link to where it's listed here somewhat regularly. I would just visit that link, make sure it's still 65.5 cents. And if it's not, type in the new rate here. Next, we'll go into a little bit more detail on how this distance calculator works and how to use it in your spreadsheet. I'll see you in that video. Thanks for watching.